My name is Willie Linton. I run playback and program shows for different artists around the world. Right now I'm in Hong Kong on tour with Post Malone. All my friends were touring in bands, and that was a dream of mine, was to start touring and to be able to travel and play music. I used to watch like MTV Unplugged, Nirvana all the time, and that was kind of like the intrigue, the motivation to get out there. I just was in love with the energy of the shows, and I just always wanted to be a part of it. Started out playing in bands, played drums and guitar, and ended up falling in love with the engineering side of things. Started mixing a lot of records and recording for a lot of different artists, and a few records picked up, and then it led me into the world of live sound, live production, and the opportunity came up to run playback for a couple of different artists, and it kind of fell right along the lines of, just creative enough and technical enough. Kind of fell in love with the idea of being part of the band without having to be on stage. The playback engineer actually, helps keep everything on stage in sync, keep the whole show running, and you feel like you're part of the band, but you're also responsible to help translate the record and feed the information for monitors in front of house. Playback became like a niche position that I kind of fell in love with. This current tour, we had a lot of MIDI components that were added, so latency became a big issue, from drum triggers to live keyboard patches to sending program changes to neural quad cortex foot controllers and or amp sims and helix. There's a lot of things going on stage that are heavily reliant on playback and the backing tracks and slates and click tracks and everything else. So latency became a big issue because we're so reliant on MIDI. Integrating into a Dante net, I had to figure out a fast way of like integrating into that and figuring out the I/O and how that was going to set up. That was the biggest challenge. Running 6 laptops right now, 2 laptops for playback, a main and a backup. That's also running all the MIDI, all the virtual instruments, all the program changes are sent from those, as well as playback. And then 2 computers that are doing some cool vocal processing, and a main and a backup for that, and then 2 computers for recording. So your job is to keep the show moving, regardless. I believe that the playback engineer is just an extension of the band, extension of the artist. So you're listening to every word that they say. You're trying to be a part of that show. If something happens during the show, you got to stop it. If an instrument goes down, you need to be able to recover somehow. So having to move away from your main duties and focus on something else, like those are the hairy moments. That's why you get paid to do what you do. You need to make that transition seamlessly. Sometimes you got to make edits on the fly. Sometimes you got to extend a part or something like that. And those are the parts that I think are fun. Sometimes they might be scary, but I always like a challenge. In those moments, like, it makes you feel like I'm supposed to be here, versus just like, the typical, hey, this guy just pressed a space bar, We did a show one time and Drake showed up. So he was going to perform in the middle of the set. They had a few different tracks, had to get them edited, kind of build a DJ edit for the show. I think preparation meets opportunity. I heard rumors that like it might happen. So I think that's where beforehand you have to download all the files you can, make edits and just kind of have things prepared. So if the opportunity arises, you're not unprepared. In that case, I think I already had the files. I just didn't know the edit. I didn't know if it was going to be a verse chorus out or how many verses the artist is going to do. And those aren't hard edits to do, but while you're running everything else, there's no room for error. Before I started using Oaktone, I was using various launch pads, but you still required a PlayAudio 12 or something that would allow you to get USB to 2 computers. When I found out about Oaktone controller and I had 2 class compliant USB connections, I was just like, damn, that's it. I don't want to think about it. I just want to plug it in. In the playback world, it's all about speed, efficiency. You need to be able to set up fast. It needs to be efficient. It needs to be redundant in nature and tactile. The Oaktone is like more of a firm press. It's responsive, but you don't want it too responsive. You don't want to double trigger. It's not like you're not making a drum beat on an Oaktone. So I think it's fine-tuned for playback. I use the Oaktone slider, the one that has the 2 sliders on it, and sometimes during a show you might need to fade something out or do a reverb throw or delay, and I think the sliders are an excellent touch to the controller. Also, the little green lights, I like to be able to see that the unit's connected and that nothing's going weird with that. And sometimes the other MIDI controllers, you can't tell if it's connected. So anything that like just works right out of the box, I'll put in my rig. That's why I ended up rocking with the Oaktone. Plus, it's small. If you learn something new, you should share it. I don't think that we're on this earth to just like take information without leaving something else in return. Whether you're a musician or a music director or a playback engineer, whatever, or even the artist, like it takes a village, to really pull everything together. You just can never take that for granted. Those are the people that are going to have your back. And I think that it's important to work with companies that are in that same mindset. That the gear that's in your racks, it's something that came from a labor of love, because this job very much so is one. Because at the end of the day, like you can't take the controller with you, but the memories can last forever, but you gotta share.